In Ecclesiastes, which is full of wisdom, in chapter 7, verses 3 and 4, sorrow is better than laughter, for sadness has a refining influence on us. Yes, a wise man thinks much of death, while the fool thinks only of having a good time now. Hey, it's Victoria from Ask the Strawbillies. So making a special video about this for people in West Virginia. Maybe you can check out what's going on in your state. But there's flyers all over the place in all the locations that foster parents are needed. And I found out through a reliable source today that there are a ton of foster children living in hotels. There's nowhere to house these children. And, it's something that's not in our newspapers. As I've read from News of the World, there are great holes in your newspaper. Putting an ad with two flowery looking children in the front, polished up. It's not the same thing as showing the crude reality and the realities of being a foster parent, because it's certainly difficult. So I'm going to use this to preface a video on this same subject, because it takes special people to be foster parents. And a lot of these children have been neglected and abused, whether it be by their parents or a relative or the system itself, because there's a lot of cases where children are taken and there was no need. And, well, it gives you a pause for concern. And there's certainly no orphanages left for children to be raised. The centers are basically holding facilities with medication, no behavior modification, and no one that's perfected in those techniques, because it takes trained teams of individuals to perfect behaviorist techniques to change extremely dysfunctional behavior patterns that have been ingrained in children. So, just a little side note here for anyone that's seeing these flyers everywhere. And I think it's sad to post a picture that depicts two children looking pristine and pretty, like they could be Prince Harry or Prince William's children, when that's not the sad reality going on. I think you pull at people's heartstrings more when you portray the cruel reality that we find ourselves living in, and not this Disneyland world that everyone seems to believe in, except those that have experienced the alternate. To go through our first creation is a turning of the soul, we hope, toward the light, out of the animal world. God be with us. To go through another tears all the making of the first creation, and sometimes it falls to bits. We fall into pieces. So I found out something today while at my new job, which I guess the Lord puts me in these places so that I can collect information. But apparently, the reason we're seeing foster parents needed everywhere in West Virginia is because there's a dire need for foster parents. And apparently there's such a dire need that some children are living in hotels. And this is what I've heard. I have not confirmed it, but it's from a fairly reliable source. So, I guess if you have it in your heart to have a tender mercy to apply to be a foster parent, certainly do that, because apparently there's a great need here in this state, probably others in this increasingly dark time that the newspapers leave great big holes in. And that's my concern about down here, is that there's great holes in our newspapers about the real issues, not the Disneyland world they want us to live in. Sad thing is, a lot of these children might be medicated and might be victims of abuse from other foster homes even, because the rates increase as you put children in foster homes of abuse occurring in those homes. So, I heard this today, and you think about your own childhood, if you had a good one, and what a tender mercy that was from God, despite all the baggage we all have with our parents that we have to work through, because they're certainly not perfect, neither are we. But, wow, it's just a very sad thing I heard today, and I thought, well, this kind of fits in with tender mercies. So if someone is willing or wants to do that, apparently there is a great need for foster parents. And I think that you have to be an extremely loving person and know what you're doing to take in foster children, because a lot of them are extremely damaged from abuse and neglect. So, just some news from the mountain mama up here as I'm trying to make my way in this world. Maybe those that have a calling can help some children in your area, because I think in these increasingly difficult times, there's probably going to be a great need for foster parents. It's not going to get any easier in this country. I'm sad to say that, but I just know it. While raising my stepson, who had a myriad of problems, and we don't even need to discuss why he had them, but he made me a better person and a better parent. Furthermore than that, he gave me my salvation through Christ, because that little boy understood the difference between heaven and the hell of his youth. So we say I tried to save a child, and he ended up saving me eternally. And it's not easy, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and I did make a lot of mistakes. But you will find a love with a child that's future is so bleak that is in some ways greater than your own biological children. And I don't say that lightly, because I think it's the struggle, and I think it's the understanding of the fact that we're all human, and that we have to take care of our fellows, or we're no better than animals out here. So, I speak from personal experience. I would never tell anybody it's easy. So if you're up for a challenge, become a foster parent. And you certainly have to get rid of a lot of your human ego and a lot of the way you think that life should be. The June and Ward Cleaver family. But it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. Because I feel like if you could save one life, how you don't know what that life could accomplish. He could be a doctor. He could be an inventor of some great new gadget that everyone needs. It's, think of all the things that have been provided through the years by people. And what happens if one of those people was one of those cases and someone pulled them out of the gutter, pulled them out of a hotel or a center, and took them in? So you just never know, how that life would ripple out throughout eternity and how many other lives would be affected. And it's something to truly consider, being a foster parent. And it's just sad. It's so sad, the things you see out here, hear about. The problem with me is I can hear someone talk about it, and I can see it in my mind like a picture. And that's why I say it should be presented as the raw, ugly truth that is occurring, not the one presented in the flyers. Because that's the way to make people wake up and realize that there's more to life than just playing till you die. There's a lot of hard work that should be done down here. A life of service. And I've led a life of leisure and luxury. It was very unfulfilling. So a life of service. You have that mission. It's important. It's important. And the newspapers, or the news, they say nothing about this at all, or about the poor at all. There are great holes in your newspapers and reports. Nobody sees them. God sees them. I want to add this as a footnote to my thoughts on these children. When my children were very young, they were all baptized and christened, dedicated to the Lord at an early age in the Methodist Church at the time, back in the day. But my dad, his side of the family was Catholic, and throughout my life I've had very strange experiences, especially being Catholic. I've come to understand this world in a different way through the things that have happened to me that would take a whole book to write about. But there are things called generational curses that pass down through lineage. Scientists would call them genetic defects, or i.e. addiction, or whatever have you. And as much as behavioral techniques can help aid you in fixing children, these children are not protected spiritually. There's a lot of superstitions that were actually true about children. And now we live in this AI digital age. And I've got an Irish guy I'm listening to who's very wise, and he talks about the digital jinn. Anyone that is familiar with the jinn knows that it's another word for demon. Or you could call it an alien entity, whatever you wish. Whatever term suits your fancy. But our children are on these computers and screens a lot. And these things are comprised of sigils. Scribing sigils. And I guess you can scribe for good or bad, but most content is created for a reason. Also, Satan wants to get our children when they're young. He wants to damage them and extinguish their light so that they can't go out there and be a seed for God's kingdom. So children are a prime target down here in the spiritual warfare. And this has come to me through not just experience, but a lot of reading, but a lot of experience too. And there's so many factors, and each case would be individual, but these children are spiritually unprotected nowadays, especially with a lot of doctrines that believe they have to be of age of reason and everything else. So a lot of these children, I think, need deliverance. They need deliverance. And Just wanted to add that as a footnote. Just was thinking about that as I was gardening and out here feeding the horses and all. So have a great day, everybody. Peace be with you all. The force be with you. Hopefully, the light force of Luke and not Darth Vader's.